Good morning. Just a sound check for everybody joining. You can set your volume and so on. So good morning to everybody. Welcome. Hope you'll enjoy the session. Talk to you in a few minutes' time. Good morning, Gwen. Welcome.
Thank you. Morning.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome
Morning,
to the
Harry.
session. Morning, everybody. It's great seeing all the faces again. As we go along, we will admit more people into the session, but let's kick off this morning with some housekeeping. As usual, let's remind each other to stay on mute, please. We're doing it in a meeting fashion, so everybody is allowed to share and talk to each other, but that can be disruptive, so please keep yourselves on mute. At the end of the session, we will have a panel discussion, and during which you will be allowed to raise your hand and ask questions. So that will work. Also, you're welcome to use the chat room to exchange contact details and do networking and talk to each other, but please remember to keep the discussions related to the topic being discussed today. We really appreciate that. Yeah, so let's have a look at our program. Let me get the program up for us. So there we go. We're proudly being hosted today, and it's the 4th of December 2025 by the Department of Transport and the SaferStops Association. I must say apologies for Nikki not being able to attend today. Unfortunately, she's not well, so she's been booked off. We pray for a speedy recovery. So we're talking today stakeholder and industry consultation on the draft National Truck Stop Framework Study. And Ms. Lali Gada proudly is going to share this meeting for us, or chair this meeting for us. Thank you, Ms. Lali, for taking the lead. We really appreciate that. We're going to give an opportunity to do that just now. Ladies and gents, as you know, the Transport Forum is sponsored by a lot of associates and media partners and gold sponsors, making this platform possible for almost 19 years already. And we would love also to give them recognition for making the Transport Forum possible. And so let's quickly have a look at who they are. So there we go. We've got the top block there. We've got associations. They're in a formal agreement with the Transport Forum, and they are the South African Association of Freight Forwarders, South African Express Parcel Association, the Road Freight Association, South African Bus Operators Association, African Rail Industry Association, SaferStops Association, Multimodal Inland Port Association, and International Women in Transport. So these organizations are in a formal agreement with the Transport Forum. Obviously, there are many more, but these are in a formal agreement. We're proudly having media houses, Railways Africa Magazine, Freight News by FTW, Engineering News, and Focus on Transport and Logistics, also helping us making the Transport Forum possible and giving us great exposure. And all these sponsors and associates, obviously, ladies and gents, their links are on our Transport Forum website. Need you to engage with these companies. We also got gold sponsors, many years already supporting the Transport Forum, talking about Smart Tap. We've got Control Fleet, Global Trade Solutions, Utari, JC Auditors, Unitrons, University of Johannesburg, Ticket Pro Travel, Bid Air Cargo, Cuba, Freeway, Data Novel, Standard Bank, Easy Clear, and Internet of Things integration. So let's give a big hand to all the sponsors for making the Transport Forum possible. We really appreciate your support. Ladies and gents, just a quick reminder that the Transport Forum has a business directory, very popular. It's a BE initiative of the Transport Forum. We outsource this to Olga Mashilo, Boleng Consultants. He's administrating the Transport Forum business directory, so you can have your company listed in this business directory for only 450 rands per annum. And Olga Mashilo can assist you in doing just that. And the feedback we're getting is very positive in companies getting exposure through this platform. Especially also companies not having a website. You know, this is a great way to also have a web page through this business directory, and you can see it's very well categorized. So after this event, in the next day or so, you will receive an email from myself thanking you for attending, prompting you for feedback on this event, which is very important to us, and then also, you know, reminding you, asking you actually whether Olga should get into contact with you. But you can also take note of her number there, and you're welcome to contact her. All right, so that's the business directory. The Transport Forum's website, transportseek.com, is there for you to download presentations, have a look at the photo galleries of the events, and lots of other information. And the presentations you see here today will also be uploaded to this website, so you can download it complimentary, together with more than 900 other presentations being presented at the Transport Forum over the past 18 years. And the way to do that, ladies and gents, if you go to the website, you'll see there's a user login on your screen. At that website, you log in. Should you not have a login yet, you click on sign up, and the sign up then will make it possible for you to create your own login credentials. It's all complimentary, and you should be able to log in. And then what you do then next, let me show you. At this website, you will see there's an events tab and there's a downloads tab. So after you've logged in, you go to events downloads, and then you should find this simple but powerful search engine. You can see the top field there. You can type in any title or description or a person's surname, whatever. And the moment you hit search, you will then be given all the presentations related to your key that you've put in there. Or you can go to category, and at category you can select the day of the event, hit search, and it will open up all the presentations for you, and you can download complimentary. Very, very powerful. So, ladies and gents, that's then about our housekeeping, taking us back to our program today, 4th December 2025. I would like to introduce you to our MC for today, Ms. Lali Gada, and she's the Freight Logistics Specialist, Department of Transport. I'm sure, Ms. Lali, you've got many other credentials as well would like to share to us. So, Ms. Lali, proudly over to you then. Thank you for chairing for us this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Harry. Good morning to everyone, both on the platform, which is here on Zoom, and those who are streaming live with us at this moment. My name, as Harry has introduced, is Mihlali Gada from the Department of Transport. And just off the bat, I want to really appreciate the Transport Forum for having us here. This is our third installation to come to industry and explain what it is that we're doing as a Department of Transport when it comes to the truck stop framework. But over and above that, with the conversation that we're having with Harry, we do want to play more of a critical role within this forum, so that private sector does get to understand what is the responsibility of government, what's our direct mandate, what we are currently doing, the projects, but also get a feel and a viewpoint of industry in terms of, are we hitting the ball on the mark? Are we missing it a bit? Are we on the left or the right, or right in the center? These interactions are very, very critical, especially in light of our current logistics crisis. I know that we are literally at the tail end of it, trying to make sure that we waiver that, as has been coordinated by the presidency through Operation Vulindlela. So every single thing that we present to you in this forum pertaining to freight logistics is something that emanates from that logistics crisis committee, as well as some of the policies and strategies that we have currently as a Department of Transport. So the purpose of this meeting, colleagues, is for us to come to industry, have a discussion on the development of a truck stop framework. We had the first installation, which happened on the 5th of September last year, where we spoke about the methodology, how we had adopted what we're going to do. We also spoke quite strongly about the people that we're doing it with. I don't know, if some of you are not well aware of who I am, but I lead logistics infrastructure for the department at national government, and we are doing business unusual. What we're doing is that in the process of developing our policies, strategies, framework plans, we are integrating the private sector viewpoints within the system. It actually, we found that it is a system that works quite efficiently as to, one, avoid duplication of work that's currently being done outside, because most times we don't know who's doing what because of the lack of synergy in planning and implementation of everything that we do. Secondly, is to ensure that the private sector voice is amped up when we are developing strategies, because ours is to create an enabling environment for private sector to thrive. And we cannot do that by just developing policies without the private sector. So this is business unusual for us. This is an integrative strategy, as I've said, that we are developing with the private sector. We have literally spent very limited resources on it, because we have gone to every single player in the private sector to ascertain what they're currently doing, but to get the expertise that are out there as well. Instead of us doing it the normal way, in inverted commas, that we do it by appointing consultants who most times give us shoddy substandard work. To that effect, then we'll go on to the next component of my presentation. I'll be emceeing and doing a couple of presentations, so you're going to be seeing my face a whole lot. So just get used to this face, colleagues, just for the next 2 hours. I promise not to be boring, and I hope that you'll be able to listen attentively to what I'll have to say. The second part that I need to do is introduce the team that's been working on the truck stop framework. It is ourselves as a Department of Transport as a lead, because all policy development, strategies, plans of government are led by the department. But what we've done in business unusual is that we have actually actually requested the assistance and sought out the assistance of the private sector. We're working with SaferStops associations. Harry did note that Nikki was supposed to be here to one support, but also to make the presentation that I'll be making at 9:30 as a strategic component and part of the development of the truck stop framework. And those of you who had been at the meeting on the 5th of September would know that we had stated quite categorically that we're doing the strategy primarily with SaferStops, but over and above that, we're working with CSIR, working with CRICME. CRICME is an association that works on the corridors, and what they do, they collect data which gives us an analysis of what is currently moving on our corridors, what are the stagnant points, what are the challenges, and what are the propelling initiatives that should be taken for us to have seamless movement along our corridors. They've worked specifically around the N4, which assists us a lot, and they're a strategic component of the workstream 2, which is a workstream of the National Logistics Crisis Committee. So they work they've worked with us in the development of the strategy. With CBRTA has also developed a truck stop strategy because they are interested with the land that they currently own on the strategic corridors to start developing truck stops which are owned by themselves. We also work with SANRAL. As you would know, SANRAL is an entity, again, like CBRT of the Department of Transport, that has got the responsibility to manage, and to develop the national corridors, national routes rather, and therefore the strategic economic corridors on those routes. They are also in the process of developing a plan, but their plan concentrates primarily on providing access from the national routes into the caveats that become the strategic nodal points, which we call truck stops. You will hear in the presentation that I will make that there will be other components and other people that we have consulted quite extensively, including the Department of Minerals and Energy, because they are actually the custodians of the fuel stations, because fuel stations have become de facto truck stops in the South African context, as much as we do have very limited 0.1% of truck stops that don't serve fuel. And then we also have something that you'll hear in the presentation, places where trucks stop. Those are not truck stops, but those are bends on the caveats of the economic, the tertiary and primary corridors where trucks have decided to stop. And one of the biggest challenges we have with those is that where trucks decide to converge and stop on the economic corridors, we are finding that small communities are beginning to form, which are becoming a serious problem for the spatial development of cities, provinces, and national. So I have then spoken to both the purpose of the meeting as well as introduction of the truck stop framework. Then let's get to the meat, colleagues, of why we're here. In our discussions with Harry, we had said that we prefer to take all inputs and questions and discussion points after all the presentations, because the presentation is actually quite seamless. It just starts from the methodology and our findings, and the actual truck stop framework is what we are seeking to get to today. I know that it will be monotonous for those of you who had attended the meeting of the 5th of September, but we do find it important for us to at least heighten how we collected the information, what information we collated, what strategic tools that we've utilized in the collection of this information, and then finally get to how we're then able to develop this framework. This framework, we want it to be finalized by the end of the financial year, which for government is by the 31st of March. So after this session, we are preparing a submission to our EXCO. EXCO will then make a determination of whether it needs to go to Cabinet or Parliament, or it needs to go to MINMEC or KOTO. MINMEC is the meeting of the minister with all the 9 MECs, and KOTO is a meeting of all the municipalities, the heads with our department, so that everyone is well aware of what we're doing as a department. So that's a process that we'll be undertaking moving from this point. Can we then fly to the presentation, Ayanda, so I can go through the presentation of the methodology and our findings? It will be relatively short, colleagues. It's not a laborious presentation, and I think we did that purposefully because a lot of you who are in attendance would have had a bite of this when we did present it on the 5th of September when we're starting and kicking off the process. Next slide. So this is the content of the presentation, the methodology, the tiering system, and the findings. And by tiering, we're saying that we have created tiers of the different truck stops determined by the functionalities and the resources that they currently have, and then what were our findings. We're also going to speak to who we've actually consulted as a department working together with SaferStops. The complex adaptive system, which is what we've applied, is a lens that we applied in the collection of the data. The tiering framework, so we'll give you the 5 tiers that we have and what they actually are classified as. And then the classifications. We'll also speak at the limitations that we've had. We'll also give you an analogy of how many truck stops we've actually physically been to, and then we'll look at the key findings. Next slide. The methodology overview. So what we have sought to do is that as part of ensuring the policy and the investment decisions, we wanted to have an evidence-based truck stop framework. So we didn't want to just shoot from the helm or do desktop research. We wanted to physically go into the truck stops, get to understand what's going on, what are the challenges, because we found that when we do desktop research, there isn't an intimate or well-inclined anything, whether it's a documentation, a policy or plan, which has been gathered by the industry. And what we find that a lot of us are thumb-sucking, how many truck stops we have in the country, what is the definition of a truck stop in the South African context. So we've also gone through a benchmarking exercise, which Ayanda will speak to as well, with international countries and how they define truck stops. And we've come to an understanding of, in the South African context, how we will be able to define a truck stop. So we've done to that event comprehensive research and field assessment processes. Now, these are the 5-phase methodology, and this is the approach that we took. One was data collection and mapping. We went to the fuel measures. As I said, 99.9% of the truck stops are actually a part of what we call petrol stations or gas stations or fuel measures, and also the white sites that we have, which are the sites where you just have trucks that are stopping and a service are being provided. The site verification and field visits, we went to 169 sites, which are inclusive of the fuel measures and some of the white sites. We will deal with, we have a page on exactly where those are. We also have a map of where those are actually strategically located all over South Africa, especially those that are within the primary economic corridors. Infrastructure documentation and photographic evidence. So by physically going there, we're able to ascertain what the current infrastructure is, but because we also had individual surveys that were given to the owners for self-assessment, we're able to actually get what the infrastructure is. And the reason why that was important for us is to see, is a space for trucks to stop? Is the delineation of the different trucks that come into a truck stop? So we needed to understand what is the current physical infrastructure for us to determine if this is a good truck stop or which type the truck stop falls under, and also photographic evidence. Most truck stops do have websites. Some of them did allow us to take pictures, but there were some areas where I think because people still trying to be inclined to understand what we're doing, they were a bit cautious, especially those that are not necessarily should be running truck stops. And I say this in inverted commas, but you'll see as we speak about the findings and go into the actual framework. Owner and manager interviews and self-assessment surveys were done. So we actually physically met with the owners and the managers of the truck stops. And we also requested them to do self-assessment in the form of a sheet, which they then submitted to us for those areas that we couldn't physically see when we're actually at the truck stop. Like, for an example, how many people do you employ? We cannot just calculate by virtue of visiting a truck stop on 2 days how many people they employ holistically, because you're going to find that they've got 5 security guards, but at the time that we're there, if it's during the day, it's 1 because they've got less during the day and more during the night, just to give you an example. Stakeholders consultation, as I said, we are developing this in consultation with Sandal. Therefore, we intensively consulted them as to their responsibility and their role, specifically on the strategic nodal points that are on the corridors. CBRTA, because they have developed a truck stop strategy, which was done with us, in fact, using our information primarily. CSIR, because they are experts, particularly when it comes to what moves on the corridor, because what moves on the corridors determines what truck stops are needed, what rest stops are needed, but also what safe havens, because truck stops have also become safe havens, particularly on the economic corridors when we have, whether it's looting, as we had seen, the political issues that happen in KZN, or it's the unions and the strikes, or whatever the case may be, but there are safe havens. We also saw this when we had political insurgents in Mozambique, where we had over 30 kilometers of trucks which were standing on the N4. We were actually very fortunate to be able to provide information of existing truck stops along those lines so that people may actually be able to get resources, some to actually be able to stop at those truck stops. So this is very, very critical. It's not just an exercise we're doing just for the country, but it does also speak to our movement of commodities with our neighboring countries as well. We also consulted Equipment and Associates that I told you. They have been a very strong component of this, providing us with their weekly information on the analysis of what moves on the corridors, particularly on the N4 corridor. Freight associations have been consulted, unions have been consulted, as well as fuel major representatives. And I also do not want to leave out the Department of Minerals and Energy, as I said earlier on, as the custodians of the fuel majors and petrol stations or gas stations. Next slide. So what we did is that this has been done, we introduced this when we came to this forum on the 5th of September. We've introduced a system. So we've adopted the complex adaptive system, which is a CARE system. This is a lens upon which we recognize the interdependence between infrastructure, the human behavior, and governance. So you have a truck stop, which is an actual infrastructure, physical infrastructure. You then have the human behavior, and the human behavior starts from the operator who hires a truck driver, the commodities that are in the truck, but also what happens in the actual truck stop. So it's the provision of services that are happening there. It's how the truck stops feel about it. It's also how the owners and the managers of the truck stops feel about how truck drivers utilize the actual infrastructure. And we've got, some obscure cases of, truck managers, also truck stop managers feeling like there's been abuse of infrastructure, negligence in terms of the utilization of infrastructure, and so on. Then you also have the other end of truck drivers saying that they don't get an opportunity to stop at truck stops. They get forced to stop in specific truck stops. There's the issue of the finance and funding, where they feel like they're not given by the operators sufficient money to stop at truck stops, because if you're going to sleep at a truck stop overnight, you need to pay. But you also need to look at the security element. So there are a variety of components: soft issues, infrastructural issues, social issues, economic issues that have become part of what we've been able to gather through the complex adaptive system. Truck stop system viewed as interconnected networks of drivers, the operators, communities, and authorities. There's a lot to be said about the communities that spring up around truck stops, both where trucks do stop, which is on the bends of the roads, and actual truck stops. There's an insurgence of communities along those areas because of the economic activity that seems to be happening at the truck stops. And what then becomes the responsibility of law enforcement through authorities, the security element, but also the responsible of the respective cities and provinces, as well as SANRAL, when it comes to the bends, the ability to enter, to access the truck stops, and so on. Dynamic adaptive feedback loops shape usage and safety. So what feedback will we be getting in terms of what they deem to be safety measures in a truck stop, but also what is the current usage of truck stops? Are operators allowing the trucks to stop at truck stops? And what are the reasons that force them to stop? Is it because of the time issues that they need to be compliant with labor laws? Is it because they're tired or fatigued? Is it a safety issue when there are there's an insurgence of labor unions and strikes and so on and so forth? Or is it political issues like we had in Mozambique that will not allow people to move on the N4 because they can't enter into other countries? So all these issues that were compacted into the system for us to actually analyze the reason and the need for the truck stops. Emphasis on flexibility and stakeholders coordination over rigid regulations. We have regulations, and ours as a department is to formulate, and law enforcement is to make sure that there's compliance. But what are the flexibilities in terms of the existing legislation? What can we effectively do to ensure that people both understand the legislation and they are compliant to it? But also, most importantly, what is the responsibility of the law enforcement officials to ensure that people are compliant to these things? We also have self-compliance matters that also need to be taken into heed, which the operators ideally should be able to do on their own, because drivers should only drive 8 hours a day, and that compliance issue is a responsibility of the operator and not necessarily that of the driver, because the driver is managed by an operator as to when and how they move the commodities. Encourages interactive learning, policy adoption, and sharing accountability, which is what I just spoke to. So the policy scale, it is there, the compliance scale is there, but the accountability should be on both the operator and the actual truck driver, also because of the consignee-consignor policy and operationalism that we're trying to adopt as a country and a government. Next slide. Five evaluation dimensions. One was the informal and unregulated tier. And this one is quite complex, and we left it nice and open-ended on the basis that this is the place where trucks stop. You know, they'll decide, they'll converge, and there seems to be some form of normality. They've normalized those areas where you just find on the N3, for example, you know that there's a bend. I know, you know, when I was young, this used to be rest stops. You know, when you're driving maybe from the Eastern Cape to Gauteng, you know, your parents will park out like a little parking area. It will have a little table and some chairs. But now trucks have utilized those places on the side of the road as their own areas. And what happens is that then you have communities that spring up from there, because once people see that there's a convergence of truckers there, they start selling peanuts, water, cool drink. Some are selling their bodies, and then you find that they will then need to make sure that there's a place to rest in and around those areas to avert or avoid the traveling to and from those areas. This is our biggest problem, because those areas are not ones that we can manage easily. And what they do is that when law enforcement enters into those areas or they see them, they just choose another one, 20 kilometers down the line or whatever the case may be. So that's the informal tier, which is unregulated, right? Then we've got the security tier, which is 1 to 4, from full CCTVs and petrol to minimum coverage. Then the amenities, also from tier 1 to 4, ranges from full service in terms of rests and food facilities, as well as basic ablution. We also have truck stops that don't have ablution. We then have truck stops that don't have different women and men toilets, because most truck drivers are men. But now that we have gone through this evolution of ensuring that there's women truck drivers as well, those are considerations that need to be made. But also some of the cases are the state of the ablution facilities, which is a bigger problem. We've also noted that some of them are having problems with the city providing them services. So you find that they are doing their own boreholes because they can't get the services from the cities because of where they are located. So these are some of the interactive areas that we as a national government are trying to have conversations with the cities in specific cases to say there's a challenge here. The provision of electricity, pollution facilities, as well as, you know, sanitation and water is not to the level that we need it to be. That is what we are developing the strategy to do, to see how we can ensure the synergy of the movement within the 3 spheres of government. Health and wellness tiers, again, on 1 to 4. Some have got clinics. Some have got good nutritional and rest areas. And there's also a hygiene provision in some of the truck stops. And these you'll see will probably be the ones that will be, you know, tier 4 instead of the tier 1, because these are critical issues that need to be taken into cognizance. Then the sustainability in terms of both from tier 1 to tier 4, the environmental practices like the issue of wastage and water and energy. Again, the lineage there is to the provision that is supposed to be given by the municipalities, because there is no land in the country that's no man's land. Every single piece of land belongs to a municipality, it belongs to a region. So we need to ensure that we entice and almost coordinate the conversations between the actual truck stops and the municipalities to be able to provide those services. It enables consistent benchmarking and planning across diverse contexts. And you'll see when Ayanda makes a presentation on the international benchmarking that we've done and how we have kind of looked at the diverse context of the different truck stops that we have from tier 1 to tier 4. And as I said, the first tier is the informal one, which is quite unique, but we needed to place it into the strategy so that we don't make it seem like we don't know that this is happening in the country, and it's becoming disruptive as well for law enforcement and other things. So this is what we have. So tier 0 is the informal and unregulated tier, right? So here, no formal management or registration, no security, no fencing, no lighting, no ablution or sanitation facilities, and is unsafe for overnight use and contributes to congestion, safety, and environmental risk. I think I stated this in the previous statement. This is where trucks just stop. It is becoming a problem. Now, where there are no ablution facilities, water, and all these things, it means that they are relieving themselves in the woods, which are on the sides of the road, because they are not necessarily places literally on the side of the N1, N3, N4, etc., etc. Tier 1 is the ones that truck stops that have got basic facilities. Now, these facilities include basic infrastructure with minimal services, basic lighting and limited security presence, portable or shared ablution, informal food stalls as well, and lacks fuel and smart system integration. The unfortunate reality is that in some of these tiers is where we find people selling petrol, which is not at the standard of or that is regulated by the Department of Minerals and Energy. That's where we had that entire problem of people selling fuel which has got paraffin and so on and so forth. And some of these basic tire facilities, they are so small that they actually also service the taxi industry and in some cases people's private vehicles, because you find that the fuel in these basic tires is less because of the fact that it is not real fuel and it is not properly regulated. That's one of the major issues that we have. But of course, we will stick to the mandate of the Department of Transport. But in our conversations with DMRE, these are the conversations that we're having with them, that you must also look at this, because we found that this is becoming a bigger problem. Tier 2, a developing facility, managed and partially serviced site, fenced area with demarcated parking and partial CCTV. CCTVs is very important, especially for the security, because anywhere an operator will allow their trucks to stop, their first issue is it secure? Will the truck or the truck driver not wake up and there will not be any wheels, or even worse, the actual commodities on the truck being stolen? So the issue of CCTV and fencing becomes very critical, especially for operators, depending also on the type of commodities that you're moving, or operators that actually care about the security of the commodities, and the drivers who are the MVPs, because they are the ones that must deliver these commodities. Truck is good and well, it's got the commodities, it costs more, but the person that is in charge and has got direct responsibility is a truck driver. So when there are no CCTVs and cameras and securities, it becomes a complex exercise. There are some form of abolition, that is there. It might not be as good as we want. There's some food stores, some of them, they have people that actually sell on a daily basis. Some of them have got a structure, whether it's a canteen that sells food, but also what we found, which is a critical problem for us, is that the food at all truck stops, like all petrol stations or fuel stations, are much more expensive than you'd find at a normal place, making it unrealistic for truck drivers who just, some of them have minimal wages to actually be able to afford some of the food that's there. And that's why they continue to cook in the trucks. They rather bring their own food, and that also can cause a hazard for the actual truck, but also for the environment that they're stopping at. Tier 4, standard compliant facility. It meets the minimal national standards for safety and amenities, 24-hour access control, CCTV, structured parking. And by structured, we mean you'll be able to determine where a fuel truck stops as differentiated to a truck that moves food, for example, which is very, very critical, because in actual fact, the demarcation on a truck stop must delineate the tracking. There must be delineation of where certain trucks stop in terms of what commodities they have, but also in terms of how big the truck is. So in the tier 3, you do have structured parking, fuel and food services. This is where you probably find that there actually is a shop. It will say pies, it will sell pies. Some of them even have braai stalls where people can, buy their own food and braai there, which takes away the possibility of them actually cooking in their actual trucks. And then you've got basic driver wellness and sanitation facilities. And by wellness, we mean some clinics will find in the tier 3 truck stops. Tier 4, this is the premium, full compliant facility. Full compliant with safety, security, wellness, and sustainability standards, integrated smart system and digital monitoring of everything that goes in. They can account for it. You'll have a camera if you want information of whether your truck driver actually stopped there. And I do know that, operators do have monitoring systems on their actual truck. But if you need any further information for whatever the reason, if the truck is stolen for any reason and they were able to take out, the tracker that truck driver has, these facilities will be able to tell you that this truck drove in here. This is the time that it came in. This is the time that it left. I mean, it can even give you a physical CCTV account on the movements, both of the truck driver as well as the truck itself. Integrated smart system and digital monitoring, on-site clinics, which is very, very critical. Wi-Fi, another critical component, because our drivers don't necessarily have money to be able to continuously have either airtime or data. Hardly anyone uses airtime anymore, especially when you've got data. And this becomes critical for the management and continuous communication between the truck driver and the operator, as well as where they are going in terms of destination. They've got lounges, like I stated. Some of them have got bright areas. They've got TV areas, a big screen where they can actually, where it's recreational. They can stop and truly relax and rest so that they can be ready for the next phase of their trips. A renewable energy and cycling system. This is on the environmental component, which is quite critical for us because the environmental degradation happens quite a lot at the truck stops because of the fuels, but also the emission that is given by trucks. So these truck stops actually have a renewable energy system as well as a recycling system. When we're speaking about Wi-Fi, it's just that Nikki is not here today. She is currently in conversations with Vodacom to see if Vodacom can potentially introduce free Wi-Fi at all truck stops. SaferStops is an association that deals particularly and exclusively with the lifespan of the truck driver within the truck stop facility, but also throughout the entire ecosystem of the OD pair, the origin of the truck to the destination of the park. So that is their major interest. And we truly applaud them for the work that they do. I mean, they've gone as far as having conversation with some fuel majors. I think it's Engine Ayanda, if I'm not mistaken, who has developed a menu for the truck drivers at a nominal cost. When we launched the Truck Drivers Safety and Wellness Symposium last year, they actually provided the lunch, and it is very, very, very delicious because our truck drivers are subjected to eating pap and bread, and we all know what that means. The more starch you have, the more you're susceptible to be tired and sleep and not nutritious. You know, the nutritional value is not there. She's also speaking to some water companies. I just forget the name, Ayanda, for the provision of consistent water at purified water at this truck stop to ensure that they don't necessarily have to buy the water, that they can have access to it. I'm speaking on behalf of Nikki because we are developing the strategy together, but this is also some of the work that is currently happening on the ground and that is being, architected by SaferStops. On Tier 4, you'll find most of these on the major economic corridors. We don't necessarily find them on the secondary or tertiary corridors. They're actually more aligned and attuned to the N3, some of them on the N4, and very limited on the N1. Ayanda will come, and when he gives a presentation and gives a delineation of the concentration of truck stops and the different tiers that are concentrated on the different economic corridors, you'll see that. Next slide. The limitations. Variations in provincial and municipal planning capacity, that's what I spoke to, the lack of provision of water services, energy, etc. These are conversations we're having with the municipalities to ensure that they understand that truck stops are strategic nodal points on the economic routes. Therefore, they have to service them. Some of them are located very far from the municipalities, but it doesn't take away the responsibility of the municipalities and provincial authority. This also comes to the law enforcement issue. Law enforcement has an obligation to ensure the safety of these truck stops because of the fact that they are strategic nodal points on the economic corridors. So you find that, where the concentration primarily of law enforcement of the city and municipalities is concentrated on looking at people's driving license, people driving bad, and not necessarily concentrating on the strategic nodal points. And that's the conversations that we're having currently within the three tiers of government to ensure that they understand the strategic importance of truck stops. Predominantly private ownership. And that means that a lot of times there's fragmented regulation. Most of them are actually hired out. You find that there's a piece of land that was owned by somebody and somebody wants to develop a truck stop. They then have to lease the land, then develop the land. But also sometimes they are frustrated with the actual leasing of the land. When they want to expand, then they find that the land that they want to expand to belongs to somebody else, or the leasee doesn't want to, lease any further, etc., etc. Some of them do have over 50 years leases. Some of them are running out quite strategically because they've been leasing them for quite a while. So that predominantly private ownership is becoming a challenge for the actual owners and the operators and the managers of the actual truck stops because it limits what they can do in terms of the development of the truck stop, because nobody wants to invest on something that you're not sure you can utilize for the foreseeable future. Incomplete data in rural provinces. It's very difficult to get some of the data of the truck stop, especially in the provinces that are very rural or in the areas that are very rural. But we've tried and extrapolated as much as we can. We've been to, like I said, the national routes, the secondary routes, the tertiary routes, the municipalities, rural areas, the cities, to try and find physically where these truck stops are located. Then there's limited cooperation from some private sector operators, privacy and competition concerns. And I think it's just the nature of the private sector at times. I don't know when you're developing a policy, I know what they think you're going to do with the information, but we actually are developing this policy to create an enabling environment for business to thrive. So with not getting information, it limits our scope of being able to do exactly that. But this has been, it's not been everybody. I mean, most people, and Ayanda can confirm this, most people have been willingly giving us information, willingly sharing with us their infrastructure, especially because we're saying we are not going to talk about what infrastructure you personally have. We're just generalizing and saying that when we have the tiers, this is the general infrastructure that we have on the tiers. We're not pinpointing and saying that company has this is what they're doing. That is not what we're doing with this exercise. Next slide. The key findings, truck stop infrastructure is unevenly distributed, more along tier 1 and 2, and very limitedly in tier 3 and 4, which is the Rolls Royce of the truck stops. High concentration along the N1, N3, and N4 corridors, and very sparse and scarce in the rural areas. So you find that there hardly are any truck stops, or they are not delineated in strategic places where trucks would actually need to stop, because the development of a truck stops must be aligned to where the commodities are coming from, to where they are going. There should be a calculation of the kilometers that is required. Government regulation says that you must drive 2 hours and you must stop. Trucks drive 80 kilometers per hour. So the ideal situation is that if you've got commodities, for example, in the coming from the port of Durban, coming all the way to, let's say, City Deep, you should be able to give a kilometer analogy of where truck stops should be allocated. And that is what we're hoping to do with the strategy, to be able to denote where you actually need more truck stops, but also look at where there's oversaturation and concentration of truck stops. And we know that that's a competitive edge of some fueling companies, but there is over concentration in some areas and under concentration in other areas. Illegal or informal truck stops near borders and ports undermine compliance. I spoke to this earlier on, especially along the cross-border issues, especially along the borders, where you'd find a lot of hawkers on the side of the road trying to sell everything, including their bodies. And we do know that a lot of one of the major problems we have with truck drivers and truck stops is the informal, I'm trying to be diplomatic, is the informal prostitution, is that the right word to use? Sex work. Yes, maybe that's a better word to use. The informal sex work that happens along these bends. So that is one of the major problems that we have, that the bends where trucks stop is usually located in these areas. When you just drive to a cross-border or to a border post, you will see how informal hawkers flock to the trucks, selling any and everything, and as I said, including the services that are illegal in the country, and part of it being sex work. A positive momentum, stakeholders support the DOT-led development of truck stop standards. We've had support everywhere. We have not had one incident where people don't understand what we're trying to do, both from within government and outside government. So that's by the industry, by the entities, by the associations, as well as by the unions who represent truck drivers. Public-private partnership is essential for scaling infrastructure. That's very critical. And this is one of the major reasons why in the development of the strategy, we are doing it with the private sector. We want to understand what the challenges are, what is the perfect case scenario, so that we don't just develop a strategy and it becomes one of those that are packed up in our offices collecting dust forever and ever in a day. Next slide. That's the end of my presentation. Can we then move on? Please flight the agenda. We're now going to move on to Ayanda, who will be presenting the actual framework. Now, this is everything that we've gathered with using our complex adaptive system. They're using the findings that we have within the data collection, using the information that we've been able to source from everyone who's been a strategic stakeholder and everyone actually who is in the steering committee. And when I say we're working with the SaferStops, Craig May and Associate, CSIR, Sandral, CBRTA, they're actually part of the steering committee. So we're not just working with them in terms of consultation, but at every turn where we've built up information, we come, we bounce it off each other, everyone gives the ideas and the analysis. That is how we've effectively ensured that we work with the private sector, not just through consultation and ticking a box, physically having them part of the development of the strategy, because we are doing business as usual, as I said. Next presentation, and I hope I didn't speak too fast. I know sometimes I do, I do speak fast, but we're right on time. The next presentation at 5 to 10. It's just a little bit Yeah, good. A little bit early. Will be Mr. Ayanda Pasia, who actually is our strategic project manager for this development of the truck stop. He physically went to all the 179 truck stops. So he not only is not just theoretical, but he practically has had interactions with truck drivers, with operators, with the unions, with the managers, with the owners, and looked at the physical infrastructure at each and every one of the 179 truck stops that we visited. Thank you, Mr. Pasia. You can start your presentation.
Just remember to unmute Ayanda. Thank you.
Okay. Just waiting for the presentation to be flighted.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, colleagues. As stated by the chair lady, my name is Ayanda Pasia, and Ms. Michali gave you guys the meat of the document. I'll be giving you the sides just to give you a background of why we're essentially doing this and where we are going with it. So this is just the content that we're going through, giving you the vision and mission, which is why we're doing it. The framework overview, just a brief background and the evolution of the truck stops, the current context of truck stops, the challenges, and most importantly, the definition of a truck stop in the South African context, the site visits that were conducted, the truck staging area, just to have a differentiation between what is a truck stop and a truck staging area, because now truck staging areas are becoming vital in terms of the freight flow to the borders and the ports in the country, and also having an investment case of why we should invest in truck stops and how, and have a way forward in terms of the recommendations of the strategy that have been developed. So firstly, in establishing
Ayanda, sorry to interrupt. Ayanda, sorry to interrupt. Can you, some reason, can you click on the slide view icon there at the bottom and go to slide view, please?
Thank you.
Okay.
I actually wanted to note that. Thank you, Harry.
Okay. So in developing the framework,
it's not yet on the slide, presentation, and yeah, just press on the bottom. There we go. Thank you.
Is it fine now? Because I'm
yes,
also
it's fine now.
Okay. On the vision and mission slide, let me just do this. Sorry, guys, technology can be funny. We tested this. Is everyone able to see the screen?
Yes. You're out of slide view.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, just give it a bit, 2 minutes to come back.
No problem.
You want us to give you 2 minutes of silence? I feel like in the 2 minutes you can continue until you get back.
Yeah. So for the vision, we wanted to establish a safe, efficient, and inclusive national truck stop framework that enhances and promotes driver well-being, which is the most important person for truck stops. Also supports sustainable freight logistics and contributes to the development of local economies and also through the South African freight corridors. So the mission was to coordinate the planning, development, and management and standardization of truck stops along the South African freight corridors through collaborative public-private partnerships, integrating smart technologies, and having evidence-based planning. So these facilities then provide secure environmentally sustainable spaces that protect road users and improve freight efficiency, because the more a truck driver is rested, the more it's safer for us normal drivers on the road to be safe, because an awake driver is a safe driver. So the next slide, the framework overview. The framework overview, we wanted to develop, as the DOT, we wanted to develop a framework to address the critical infrastructure and safety gaps that we've noted in the freight sector, and most importantly, provide a coordinated national yet locally adaptable roadmap for planning and standardizing truck stops in the country, because we no longer want a situation where truck stops are developed haphazardly anywhere and everywhere, where a person owns a piece of land and they just feel like, oh, they're afraid there are trucks moving in this corridor, and they just develop. We want it to be planned, and so people reap the rewards of their investment in that particular area. So this framework is anchored in evidence-based planning, smart technologies, and partnership with the private sector. And most importantly, we wanted to align this framework with the strategies within the Department of Transport, and not just develop it in isolation, but we wanted to take from each and every strategy that has relevance to the freight industry and speak to all of them. As stated here, we have aligned ourselves with the National Road Safety Strategy, the Road Safety Strategy, which was developed by us as the project team in 2017 and approved by Cabinet, and also the NFLS, which was approved in 2005, which is still relevant till to this day, because it speaks to some of the issues that we are highlighting in the framework. Also, we aligned ourselves with the National Development Program 2030 goals, so in terms of infrastructure development for the freight corridors. So as you all know in this platform, and we are well aware, pre the 1980s, truck stops were minimal because everything was moving on rail. Rail was dominated, it was working very beautifully. But then after the deregulation of the roads, road freight started to expand, and the facilities were limited, as we are still noting it till to this day, that growth of trucks is still growing, but the truck stops are still somewhat inadequate in certain routes and border posts. So in recent years, we've noted the unregulated growth and inconsistent service quality in terms of other truck stops. Their quality is good. What they're offering to the truck drivers is very good for them, but in other areas, it lacks in the quality that they provide. So in the road freight strategy is the one that directed us to develop this framework, whereby it recommended that study be conducted in rest areas and truck stops, just to find out what's happening, what are the operational issues that they're facing, just to get an understanding. And then we are taking it now a step further by developing this framework, actually mapping out where the truck stops are, who owns them, what amenities do they have, and how do they service the truck drivers. So, in doing this framework, we've encountered a lot of issues. We know that a lot of freight still on our roads, more than 80%, 85% is still on the roads. We're trying to move it back to rail, and there's still rapid growth, which causes a lot more congestion. There's still fatigue-related crashes. There's roadside crimes, which happen when trucks are parked on the side of the road. You attract unwanted activities, and that causes a lot of issues in the areas where they are parked. The issue of informal stopping areas is highlighted earlier, which cause safety, hygiene issues, and environmental risks. The core problems we identified in developing this framework is we do not have a national database or standards of truck stops. We do not know what they have, where they are, but with this framework, we're trying to stop that problem, say, this is a database of all the truck stops, this is what they have, and this is what they're offering. There's an absence of grading and compliance system for truck stops. There's no body or an authority that says truck stops should be like this, and this is a standard they should maintain. So we're trying to address that as well. And also, if you noted a key issue, limited gender responsive and wellness facilities. This is one of the things we've noted, because a lot of female truck drivers starting to come into the industry, and we need to cater for their needs. Most of the time you go to a truck stop, it's either if they encounter a female truck driver, they would offer them the staff toilet or a staff shower just to be able to relieve themselves, but that is not the case that we want. We want them to have dedicated facilities just for them, so they can be free and use it in a safe environment. Wellness facilities, my ideal hope is that every truck stop should have some sort of a wellness facilities, because truck drivers are susceptible to chronic diseases which affect them on a daily basis. So they need constant care, and while they're at the truck stop, have someone to be able to check up on them, issue them medication, just assist them with the day-to-day sicknesses that they might experience. Illegal, unsafe truck parks, which compete with the formal operators. There are trucks that use the unsafe, illegal truck stopping areas because they're avoiding paying the amount to utilize a formal truck stop, which is not right. We're trying to stop that as well. Weak coordination amongst government spheres. We noted that from a national point of view, provincial and at municipal level, there's really no coordination in terms of truck stops. No one really knows what to do with them. They're there, but no one's really speaking to each other. So in terms of us developing this framework, we tried our level best to speak to provincial authorities, speak to municipal authorities as well, to have coordination and say truck stops should be like this. You must take ownership and be proud of them, because they curb a lot of issues that might occur, especially at the municipal level. Truck stops have the potential to curb a lot of issues, crime, and stimulate economy, because truck stops hire people that living around those areas. So there's a potential for them to be much bigger than what they are currently are. So the strategic imperative of the framework is to establish an integrated, data-driven framework to ensure safety and have sustainable truck stops nationwide. So in developing this framework, we wanted to have a definition of a truck stop in the South African context, because South Africa is a very unique country, unlike many others. There are diverse issues that we face. So we wanted to acknowledge the diversity of the facilities that are currently operating in the country, and they range from informal roadsides to fuel forecourts to fully serviced truck stops. However, these inconsistencies bring about the importance of having a definition in the South African context that we can use going forward in terms of developing truck stops. So our definition in the framework states that a truck stop is defined as a purpose-built facility strategically located along key freight corridors to provide a safe, secure, and well-managed environment for freight operators. Its function includes offering services such as fuel, secure parking, ablution, rest areas, repair facilities, security and wellness support, as well as convenience services that enhance driver comfort and efficiency. Importantly, truck stops are recognized as socio-economic enablers, generating employment, stimulating local enterprise development, and extending benefits to surrounding communities. That's the key important part we need to recognize about truck stops, is that they are not just there for the sake of being there. They have the potential to curb unemployment. We know unemployment in the country is a serious issue, and such logistics infrastructures assist in bringing it down a level so the communities benefit and people get to have a meal on a day-to-day basis rather than facing poverty. So in defining the truck stop, we highlighted elements that are critical in the definition. As I stated, secure parking, ablutions, food facilities, security and wellness serve as socio-economic enablers in the communities. And we wanted to categorize the two services that are in the definition. There's essential services, which every truck driver we've interacted with, they say these three are the most important to them. If a truck stop has these three, then they're meeting the minimum standards for a truck driver. Security for the drivers themselves, security for the goods that they are carrying, because that's their bread and butter. If the goods get stolen, then they encounter issues with their bosses. And ablution, clean ablution facilities that they can use, warm water, where they can be free to use those facilities. Food facilities, they want freshly prepared meals, because in some truck stops that I've been to, there was food where you can see maybe it's a day old, 2 days old, and it affects the health of a truck driver. So freshly prepared food, healthy food that is prepared for a person to be able to do their work effectively. Convenient services. This convenient services such as a gym, laundry, entertainment, Wi-Fi and repair facilities, we're not saying they're important, but they add an extra value to a truck stop. If it does not have, if a truck stop does not have, it's okay. But if these ones are there, then there's extra value. You are able to attract more truck drivers to be to utilize those facilities. So they are also play a key role in defining the truck stop. But then there's an important point I want to bring about. There are truck stops that have fuel facilities, and there are truck stops that do not have fuel facilities. So if a truck stop does not have fuel facilities, it does not make it any less of a truck stop. Because a truck stop might have all the convenience services but not have fuel facilities, and the truck driver will still be happy. But then if it has fuel facilities, that's an added advantage. So if it doesn't have, it's still considered a truck stop because of the services that they provide to the truck drivers. So this is the socio-economic impact of the truck stops. Each of the truck stops that we've visited, we've noted that there are about 6 to 10 direct jobs that are happening there, where the truck stop itself hires people. Maybe it would be the cleaner or security or whatever. There's employment happening there. And in other truck stops, what they do, especially with the shops where there's cook food and stuff, they lease out that area, give it to someone else to run, and that person actually hires other people within the community, and there's more jobs being created. And in most instances, what I have seen and appreciated with the truck stop managers and the owners, they might not want to be paid rent for that person utilizing that space to prepare food. They'll let them run it in their own way, and that person in a way is having their own catering company where they employ people and service the truck drivers. It stimulates SME participation in terms of security, cleaning, catering, and repairs, where there's a local guy who's a repair guy, can fix trucks, gets called in. If there's issues with one of the trucks in the truck stop, can fix it, and that's some sort of employment as well. Enhances driver wellness and reduces fatigue-related accidents. We know we are in December period. There's a rush in the major corridors, and if a driver is well rested, we significantly decrease fatigue-related accidents. Again, supports gender inclusive employment and community development. Yeah, I've spoken to that in the previous slide. So in developing the framework, we conducted site visits as stated earlier. We visited about 179 verified truck stops. We're not saying this is the number of truck stops in the country. This is the ones we visited, we could verify. I'm sure a number of them, it's ones we could not find when we're doing our desktop research. We're just driving on the national corridors and we'll see a truck stop sign, then we'll just turn and go and visit it and verify it's actually a truck stop. There's many of those that we've documented in our database. So our findings indicated that vast disparities in infrastructure and amenities, where, for example, on the N3, the infrastructure and amenities are much, much better as compared to another corridor that has less freight volumes. Widespread informal parking, especially near ports and borders. Ms. Michali spoke to that the trucks congregate in an area and then it becomes an informal parking, attracts unwanted activities. There's limited access to healthcare and sanitation and security. Some truck stops have healthcare wellness clinics, some don't, which is unfortunate because we wish that all truck stops have some sort of a wellness facility. Sanitation, some truck stops, the sanitation is not so good and the security levels are not so high depending on their location. You find that one truck stop is somewhat in the middle of nowhere and there's no nearby community or settlement in that particular area, then they wouldn't focus too much on the security. A lack of reliable data for planning and investment. As I've said, that we don't have a database of all the truck stops. We don't know what's happening, so we need to have a database to inform our planning and direct private sector to to invest in certain areas where truck stops can be viable and important and play a key role. So the drivers' key concern in our site visit, they've highlighted hygiene, fatigue, they need to rest, the safety of themselves in the corridor, and the limited parking. The unfortunate part is that not every truck stop has the same size and is big. Some have limited capacity, which then if a truck driver arrives late and there's limited park and the parking is already finished, they have no other option maybe to park their truck next to the truck stop or maybe in the nearby town, or somehow force themselves to the next town where they potentially could find another truck stop. So those are issues that they've highlighted in our interactions with the truck drivers. So this is just a map highlighting where the truck stop where we visited, we verified their location, the amenities they have. You can see the concentration, it's of most truck stops. It's in the Gauteng area, going up towards the north, going down to the south, Durban, coming down to the N1 to Cape Town. Then as you move centrally towards Cape Town, the distances begin to appear that there's no truck stops there. But then if again, I'm correcting myself here, because we couldn't travel each and every corner of the country, we tried our best to do that. Some areas we might have missed, and we are pleading, if some of you here on the platform know of a truck stop on a certain corridor and you know that we have not been there, just let us know that, guys, there's a truck stop here. Then we are more than happy to list you in our database, engage with you, send you the self-assessment, then so you can know that, okay, now I'm in a database and people will be able to know about the truck stop. So in our site visits, we wanted to categorize the different truck stops. This is different from the tiering system that Ms. Mihlali spoke about. This is just us categorizing them in terms of secure truck stop, which there's access control, CCTV cameras, there's fencing around the truck stop, which is sufficient. Unsecured truck stop, you find that there's no access control. Anyone can come in and out as they please. There's not really anyone manning the gate. The fencing around it's substandard. And rest stops, it's places where it's just a normal garage in the space at the back, and the trucks can park there for a few hours and just get a drink, just to rest and continue with their journey. And I'm just gonna say a term that I heard from one of the truck stop operators in relation to the rest stops. He called that place a piss and pie. Basically, you just use the bathroom, buy a pie and a Coke, then you're on your way again. There's no overnight resting or any sort that takes place there. Then there are fuel stops where truck drivers will just fill up and go. So we just wanted to categorize them according to that, so we know the differentiation between the two. Because I've noted that in South Africa, there are a lot of fuel stations that call themselves truck stops, but when you look at them, they're not really designed for that. They're just taking advantage of that. Or trucks are actually passing here and the truck drivers need rest. So they end up almost changing themselves to being a truck stop. They start charging for parking and stuff. But then you look at their main purpose, it was never designed for that. So we wanted to categorize and put them according to their categorization. So the classification of truck stop, this is what I spoke about in terms of the fuel, rest, unsecured truck stop, and the secure truck stop, and the definition and the key features that they will have when you are there. So this is just to put them in context, what is happening in those facilities. So in the fuel stop, there will be fuel pumps. There's no designated parking, no ablutions for driver or any infrastructure that's specific to truck drivers. At a rest stop, there's truck parking. Some of them charge for overnight, but majority of them don't. They just park there for a few hours, then they're on their way. Then they have basic ablution facilities. If maybe someone wants to take a quick shower or maybe use the bathroom, it's just those facilities. There's no perimeter security, there's no access control. It's just a truck going around the building, finding parking there and using the facilities. There's minimal or no food. It's either a small shop here and there just to buy the small basic stuff. And in unsecured truck stops, it's informal open parking is those ones where the trucks just find an open place on the corridor and just stop there and become some sort of a truck parking area which attracts illegal activities. And in a secure truck stop, you'll find there's perimeter fencing. It differs where it is, either palisade or it's either just a fence. There's controlled access, there's security, there's CCTV cameras, there's driver facilities, ablution food and restrooms. You'll find others have lounges, TV areas, and all of those stuff that make it more comfortable for a truck driver. So in us, we wanted to know what legislation or institutional framework exists that enable truck stops to operate. So if you look at the list here, there's a constitution which states the shared transport is a concurrent function between the spheres of government, the National Road Traffic Act, SPLUMA, which guides zoning, spatial planning, and land use, and some of them actually apply to us as we're in offices. So we've noted that there is no specific legislation or policy that from the Department of Transport that speaks directly to the truck stops. So none currently exists. So hence why we are developing this framework. We want to have specific framework and guidelines for truck stops in terms of how do they develop, how are they supposed to be managed, and what things we should expect when you are at the truck stop. So these are just the legislation that are currently existing but have relevance to truck stops. So it's not directly specific, but just have relevance to the truck stops. So with this framework, we are trying to address that issue. So we've also highlighted the gaps that we've identified. As stated, despite the presence of several laws that enable truck stops to operate, there's no integrated policy or a framework that governs truck stop development in South Africa. So we've identified that there's no unified framework. This framework is answering that question, saying we're developing a unified framework for truck stops to adhere to. There's weak enforcement, non-compliance to rest areas and usage of truck stop facilities. We need to strengthen monitoring through the RTMC and the provinces, because if you go to the small towns, for instance, in Pongola, you speak to the community or the truck stop owners, the roads are damaged there because trucks go into town, they damage the roads, they stop on the sides of the roads. Some of them intentionally don't utilize the truck stop, because in Pongola there is a truck stop. I think there's two, if I'm not mistaken. They don't use it because there's no law that says a truck driver must use a truck stop when they're resting, not just park on the side of the roads. So you see, a truck stop can play the role of decreasing infrastructure damage of our roads, especially in the small towns. Inconsistent zoning, we need to align with SPLUMA regulation and laws. SPLUMA, I've been to a truck stop where it's operating under those big electricity pylons, pillars. And if anything happens there, it's a danger to everyone in the truck stop and to the infrastructure itself. So we need to have a policy that emphasizes the importance of zoning and aligning ourselves with the SPLUMA regulation. Lack of gender and wellness policy, I cannot emphasize this enough. We need to have minimum gender standards, have female dedicated showers, male dedicated showers for them to feel safe, and also have clinics in the truck stops for their health. So this is the part we just wanted to bring in, the difference between a truck stop and a truck staging area. A truck staging area is essentially a designated holding zone where freight vehicles can temporarily stop before going to a port, a terminal, or a border post, or any other logistical facility. So the entire purpose of a staging area is to control freight flows between the ports and the staging area, because we don't want a situation where for example, in Durban port terminal, Richards Bay, there's a huge congestion that happens there. So a staging area's whole purpose is to be a holding area where inspections can happen. There's a queuing management system that happens. Say, okay, the port is ready for this number of trucks. At the staging area, they'll be informed we are ready for 20 trucks. Those 20 trucks can leave the staging area going to the port, instead of all the trucks coming from Gauteng or wherever going directly to the port, causing congestion, attracting unsolicited activities. So that is the entire purpose of a staging area. It's to improve port efficiency, decongest entry points, enhance safety, coordinate truck driver arrival scheduling. So that's the main difference between a staging area and a truck stop. A truck stop, there's overnight resting facilities. A holding area, a truck staging area does not cater for overnight stays. It's just for a couple of hours to process your papers, enable pre-clearance and inspection, and you move along to your final destination. It's either at the port or terminal or any other logistic facility. There are staging areas in the KZN that we visited, and there's one currently in development in Umhlatuze municipality in Richards Bay, and there's two actually in that area, just to manage the flow of traffic, especially of freight trucks coming to the port. So not everyone goes there at the same time. So that is the major difference between the staging area and a truck stop, which we wanted to highlight in this framework. So in part 4 of this, we wanted to have an investment case and strategic recommendations of why should you invest and how should you invest in truck stops. We firstly need to look at the freight volumes. You can't just build a truck stop anyway. You need to look at the freight volumes, and because fatigue-related incidents are increasing, where there's a lot of freight volumes, fatigue accidents occur. So you need to look at that. Truck stops are essential logistics and safety infrastructure. We need to make it safe for the truck drivers and the cargo. That's important. We need to utilize data tools to identify critical corridors with rest shortages, which I will talk about more in depth in the next slide. The strategic benefits of investing in truck stops: safety, accident reduction, job creation, SME inclusion, gender responsive infrastructure, and environmental sustainability. Those are the benefits of when you're investing in a truck stop, you will reap the rewards of. So this is information that we received from one of our collaborators in developing the framework, Crickmay and Associates. They have data from their logistics monitoring system, which has identified fatigue-related risks, which are on the N3, N2, N4, and N1, as highlighted in the map. That the darkish red color, it's where the fatigue-related accidents occur. You can see in the map of South Africa, there's quite a number of them, especially going down the N1 from Musina to Cape Town, again from Cape Town going towards Port Elizabeth. So those are areas that can be identified for further potential investment of truck stops because of these accidents. We want to stop them, have well-rested drivers. So this is information that they've provided for us to utilize and actually highlight all these areas that have conducted studies on. So in investing for investment opportunities for truck stops, in our observations during the site visits, we've noted a few corridors that are candidates for definite build, is N1 Louis Trichardt, N4 Maliland Kumati Port, because of the high volumes of freight that are moving there. strategic investment pilots, the N4, N14, and N10. This is for us, we felt we can test the private public partnerships and the funding models that might happen. How we justify this is that there's mining and agriculture that's happening in those areas, and it's potential for private sector investment. And those we've categorized as social and equity developments in N2, N6 between Kokstad and Tata, N8 between Bloemfontein and Tabanchu. This is to promote, even though these corridors do not have high volumes of freight moving there, we want to promote inclusive development, because these areas, their activities, they play a key role in the supply chain in South Africa. So we want to promote inclusive development of the communities, have road safety, have SMME participation, so people can develop in those areas. So we've identified this and tried to justify them, say, guys, private sector, these are the areas we can look at, try and see if there's potential investment, and maybe develop truck stops in those areas as well, and not just go for the big corridors as the N1, N3, and all the others. Try and look at also the smaller corridors, the secondary corridors, where you can see there's potential here for a truck stop. There's sufficient freight movement for the development of truck stops, and for them to thrive in that particular area. So these are areas we've looked at and identified in the framework. So in our nature as the integrated transport planning branch within the DOT, we wanted to integrate smart tools that are either being developed or are planned in future development. We looked at various tools that are there. So, because we don't want to have truck stops being just a passive rest facility. We want to be able to utilize them for data collection. We want to be able to tell freight flows who is using truck stops, who is not, so we can identify which truck operators are complying and actually taking care of their truck drivers. Because we know, I've heard stories where truck drivers are being forced to drive long hours just to meet their destination. For instance, here we've identified OCAS, which is the Operator Compliance Accreditation System, which is used by the CBRTA just to issue out permits and to show that operators are being compliant before they cross over the border to other countries. We feel that an element can be added to OCAS where we can get data to say, is the operator actually using a truck stop? Or are they just driving all the way from where they are loading the trucks to their destination? Are they actually using truck stops? Are their truck drivers rested enough? So that can be an element that can be added to OCAS.
Sorry, hi, Ayanda. Hi, Ayanda. We lost you there for a while, so just make sure that your connection is not going to give you problems, but you can continue. Thank you.
Okay. As I was saying, that the second tool that we identified is digital tachographs, which is technology that is installed in a truck to manage how long the driver's been driving, and just to manage the fatigue levels of the driver. So that is also a technology we've identified to say it can be used to manage this and encourage the usage of truck stops. There's also the logistics accountability score, which is being developed by the CSIR, if I'm not mistaken. It's a corridor level performance management benchmarking tool to see what are the freight flows in the corridors. Is it increasing, is it decreasing? Then we know, okay, in this particular corridor, there's an increase, there's a potential to develop truck stops. So these are technologies we identified in field. They can assist in freight flows and give us data, real-time data, so we know what is happening on the ground. Because we live in an age where data is important. We need to have data to make informed decisions, not just decisions based on what we see, but based on numbers that are real and can help us to improve the logistics industry. And also SaferStops Associates, which we've developed this framework with. they are developing an app for truck stops. How the app will work is that truck stops will be listed, all the amenities will be listed there, and any specials that, because in truck stops they have specials that they're running where you buy a cool drink, you buy this, you get this for free, and all those things will be listed there. And the most important part about this app that's being developed is that truck drivers themselves can use this app to rate the truck stop. So it won't be just us as DOT saying, no, your truck stop is not good. It will be the truck drivers themselves who will be rating you, almost like a hotel rating when you're rating on Google Maps or wherever, where you rate a hotel 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, and people will see what, okay, this truck stop is actually good. It has this sort of amenities, and I can actually go there. And this platform can actually be used to promote the truck stops themselves and help them improve and develop in the future. So this is one of the key objectives of this framework, to have this app for the truck drivers to be able to get data as well, and to see and monitor the truck stops if they are improving or they need to improve in the future. So we believe that by integrating these tools into truck stops, we will move from a paper-based control to digital to a digital age that will help us track freight movement, enhances security, which will support the evidence-based decision-making in terms of where the truck stops should be and where the investment should take place. So these are the strategic recommendations that we have highlighted in the document. We have about 7 of them. There's institutional coordination. We want to establish a national truck stop forum, which will be led by us as the DOT, have our entities such as SANDRAL, RTMC, CBRTA, have provincial authorities, municipal authorities, the private sector, just to see and the implementation and standardization of truck stops, because we want to have everyone in agreement of how we want to monitor the truck stops. This will strengthen the governance and have clear accountability of who's responsible for who in terms of truck stop management. So everyone will be there in this forum to participate and ensure that truck stops are functioning at the level that they should be. The second one will be public-private partnerships, where, for instance, if one of the agencies has land and there's a property developer who's interested in developing a truck stop, we encourage that to happen. Speak to each other, guys. The people want to develop truck stops, have sustainable investment and shared responsibility between the government and the private sector. As stated in the previous slide, smart tool integration. We want truck stops to be able to give us data as well and have them not just being a passive rest point, but providing us real-time data that can be used. And number 4, with standards in the tiered classification. This just to have standards of truck stops and how they should look like, what amenities they should have, and have a standard that they should meet, regardless of whichever tier they're in, whether they're in tier 1, 2, 3, or 4, they should always maintain that standard. Number 5, we'll have monitoring and evaluation. We want to establish a digital performance dashboard, which will be under the DOT's freight data bank to monitor the utilization, compliance, and safety indicators across all truck stops. So we have a data bank that's being developed currently. So we want to use that as a method to feed all the information we'll be getting into that data bank, so people can be able to see what's happening, where the truck stops are they safe, whatever's happening in terms of truck stops. Then we want to have pilot programs, 2 pilot programs specifically. As I stated earlier in the presentation, that there are facilities with fueling, there are truck stops with fueling facilities, and there are truck stops without fueling facilities. So we want to have a pilot program for both facilities, where we want to test the tier classification and refine them and see, can we adapt it and make it much better for the truck stops and the truck drivers themselves. So these are the 2 important things we want to do, along with the truck stop forum or committee. We have not decided on a name that we want to have going forward from this from this framework. So this is not just a framework for us as the public sector. We want to have inclusive collaboration with the public sector going forward and encourage partnerships and investment, because we've seen that truck stops are not just logistics facilities. They play a much bigger role. As we've said in the definition, they offer employment, which is important for the local communities. We don't want people just to be sitting there at home while there's infrastructure near them. We want them to work and be able to participate in the economy, no matter at which scale, at the big scale or the small scale, their contribution matters. So this is where we want to go in terms of the recommendations from the framework. So in closure, I just want to emphasize the things I've said: establish a truck stop framework, have a smart system integration, tiered classification system, which will ensure equitable service standards and guide future development. The 2 pilot programs, one without fueling station and one without fueling services, just to test out the tiered classifications that we've developed and gather driver feedback, which will validate operational standards before rolling out. Then have public-private partnerships and coordinated institutional action, which remain central to implementation and having long-term sustainability going forward. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayanda. Very insightful as always. Colleagues, I hope you guys can hear me. Can somebody confirm? Can see and hear me?
Yes,
Thank
we
you so
can.
much.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Harry. Thank you, colleagues. Those are the 2 presentations that we've had. The first one on the findings as well as our methodology, and then the last one, which is the most important, the presentation of the actual truck stop framework. Like I said earlier on, we'll be taking this framework through our EXCO, and after EXCO will give a determination of whether it needs to go to Parliament or Cabinet or MINMAC and KOTO. But obviously we want to do that, giving you an opportunity to tell us what your feelings are on the current framework, but also should a need arise, we are willing to give colleagues here on this platform and general stakeholders another opportunity, maybe a week or 2, to also give written comments to the actual framework. So from now, colleagues, we can take any questions of clarity, comments, or points of discussion. We are willing to take that. Can you help me, Harry, with taking those, and then we'll just do the answering.
Thank you, Mshlali. So, ladies and gents, you're welcome to raise your hand, or you can even unmute yourself, and then once recognized, because when you unmute yourself, I can see when you've unmuted yourself, and then when I've recognized you, you're welcome to ask a question, and obviously keep it short, please, and you can address the question to our panelists. I see Ria Vosloo. Ria, you're welcome to ask your question.
Thank you very much. This was a very also enjoyable and session. It was very informative, but I think it's critical that it is also something that we all enjoy hearing about and learning about. There's 2 little things that I want to know. You spoke about it a little bit. The first thing, the fact that you've taken a complex adaptive system approach is really important, because it does recognize that there are other emerging happenings on the side. For example, those informal stops that you can't just ignore because they are emerging from the system as total. But my focus is 2 issues. The first is on the food. I mean, what we've seen, and we've looked at this quite a bit with one of my colleagues who's also on the show, is that there seems to be a need for food that is more substantial, probably not supplied by your standard franchises. And they're not only local people working in the shops, but actually making those food in a substantial, well-cooked meal. That seems to be what we found from that. But now the biggest thing there is the issues about health and safety and food preparation and all those very painful kind of things that you do. which is always a difficult thing for these smaller operators to get in place. Process, the handling of food, being able to keep it cold, those kind of things. Have you addressed that at all? Because I think the food part is really important. Then the second area, also because it goes through some of the wellness issues like the diabetes and, all those malnutrition aspects. The other aspect that I want to talk to, and you did refer to that when you spoke about the sex worker issue, but some time ago I read quite a bit of research that indicated that the sort of need for sex workers or the use of sex workers are also associated with the need for companionship and community. So the model used to be that the ladies or gentlemen would be picked up at one point and then dropped off at a point later in the journey, and they would be chatting and talking on the way and providing that companionship to people that are sometimes very alone. And then they come on the return journey. Okay. But this is now, of course, with all the safety aspects and many companies no longer wanting to allow extra people in the vehicle becoming an issue. Now, a lot of the other activities that you mentioned, sort of places where people can sit together, where they can maybe make food together, etc., also addresses the companionship and the community aspects. I just wanted to know, to what level have you looked at the need for community? Because that is also required for a healthy operator. I mean, if I have to drive for 2 hours on my own, I feel desperately necessary to talk to somebody else and have discussions or just something. So have you looked at, to what extent has that need for people to be social, to be companionable, been addressed? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? We do have two that are actually on the chat. Can we maybe take these ones? There's another one now from Khumutso, which makes it 4. So maybe let me start with the ones on the chat. The first one, just a second. The first one is...
And
yes.
I wanted to have this one from Gwen Foster. I see her hand is also up in terms of traceability.
Yes.
Opportunity for traceability into the truck stop
Thank you. It's not so much a question now, it's simply an observation. From a traceability perspective, you have a number of different aspects. For instance, fuel flow, for instance, food flow, but also from the trucks and with the data that is being collected at the truck stops, additional data could extremely well support improving traceability and having the truck stop as a sort of entity, if you like, on the route and communicating with the owners. If I think of fruit as an example, with the sort of organizers of the cargo. Most of the containers, as an example, might have RFID tags. So simply an observation that this becomes could be a very key point for traceability in a number of different aspects. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Comment noted. That's very, very good one. I see also Swongile has a hand up.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Swongile from the Free State. Firstly, I'd like to apologize because I wasn't aware that the time has moved to 9 o'clock. So I actually logged in late. I just wanted to find out if, I know that I've missed a lot, but I wanted to find out if the names of the sites which were visited were shared before I logged in, because I was looking at the stats on the presentation that I managed to watch, that the number, especially for Free State and the Northwest, Northern Cape, which I'm clued up with, the number does not match with what I know. I've actually helped quite a number of truck stations to be established, and if that stats could be provided, if I missed it, I would appreciate it. So that, because I heard that the presenter Yanda was also saying that if there are any truck stops that were missed, then that could be added. I could help with that. And number two is in terms of legislative. I also saw on the presentation what could have been important, or that what is named as important. And based on the experience that I have, I know some of the important things that could be added that are very vital for a truck station to have. So I know that it was mentioned somewhere that if you have missed something, if we want to add more, would be given some time to add more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana.
Hi.
Yeah, Mshlali, I think you might have seen Gavin Kelly from the Road Freight Association's comment in the box about talking to the RFA, and he also invited you guys to contact them outside of this meeting. So thank you, Gavin, for that comment.
Is it my turn?
Yes, go for it. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you guys. I'm very excited about this, and I've spent some time with the team from the Truck Stop Association to look at our truck stop and how the rating was done, etc., etc. So I'm quite clued up in how it was done. What I am concerned about, and what I would like just an answer or comment on, is it feels to me like there would be a lot of associated costs to truck stops. I mean, we spoke at length about healthy food. We've tried healthy food over and over and over again, and we end up with a lot of food wastage because it's not bought, and it's a loss that comes from our pocket. Secondly, I know that clinics are vital, and we keep on saying we want clinics at all of the stations, but where does, I mean, to put up a clinic is R1 million. Who does that? Is there any thinking about outside investment for that, to get all of those kinds of things up and running, or will it end up being a case of all of these extra expenses coming to the truck stop owners to be able to make it to this platform and to be able to be recognized as a safer stop?
Thank you, Jana.
Can we please take, there's too many questions. Can we take these ones, maybe Harry, and then have another round, just the last round?
Let's do that. Thank you, Mshlali.
Thank you so much. Let's start with the last question. Thank you so much for that question and all the questions, colleagues. Truly appreciate it. It means that you're engaging with us and you understand where we're trying to get with this. Now, the National Bargaining Council has a component of it that is called Tracking Wellness. Tracking Wellness has established 21 clinics in the entire South Africa. Those are clinics that are currently physically in truck stops. They also have mobile clinics that they actually go to the truck stops that don't have the physical clinics to provide the services. These services are provided for free by Trucker Wellness, and Trucker Wellness, as I said, is under the NHBRC FL, which is the National Freight Bargaining Council. So those are in existence, but we also are looking for other interested parties that are interested in developing clinics or either providing these mobile clinics to truck stops. It is not limited to the National Bargaining Council, but we do applaud the work that they've done. I mean, to an extent that I'm actually just on the presentation that had been provided to us by the National Bargaining Council. We has been delineated in terms of where they are in existence: Beaufort West, Harry Smith, Beitbridge, Ventersdorp, Tugula. There's a lot of Colesberg, Warden, whatever. They also even go to an extent of looking at what are the actual diseases, which are usually the human diseases, but there's also an HIV infection issue and what they actually provide. And the map that we have, colleagues, I mean, I think for the purpose of this question coming up quite consistently, we should add this into the presentation. But the map that they have looks like this. I apologize because it's on my phone currently. So this is the delineation of where all the clinics are. This is another map that speaks about, that looks a bit white, but it's a map that tells you exactly where they're located and what services they provide. They also go further to actually, like I said, speak about the kind of diseases that there are. On the issue of food, when I spoke about SaferStops and working with Engine and trying to have this wholesome kind of food package for our truck drivers, what we realize is that most of the full stores at the truck stops actually provide food that is unhealthy, which is starch related, and we know how that affects our truck drivers. Also because we need to be considerate of the health element, and also things like sleep apnea, which we find is actually a very big problem within the truck driving industry. Most of the truck drivers don't know they have it. They don't know why they just get fatigued or fall asleep on the wheel, which causes a safety hazard. But there is a component of it that is aligned to the kind of nutrition that they have. But it's not just only the provision of food at truck stops, because remember, truck drivers are on the road, they are eating on the road. So we also need to look at operators and how they can effectively ensure that these truck drivers have water, whether it's fruit and veg, but whatever it is that they snack on along the way becomes very critical. So it's an ecosystem, and it's not only about an issue of compliance in the provision of food at the actual truck stop. It's from when they leave the operator to the entire system when they're driving on the corridors, but also it's a life activity. And this is why with SaferStops, not just looking at, the physical truck stops. That's why we're looking at the provision of gyms at the truck stops. And I can say now to this meeting that SaferStops is in conversations with the provision of the outside. I don't know if you see these things, they're happening at outside gyms in some estates and some local areas, and even some townships now, where they're trying to make sure that people exercise. So that's the kind of activities that we're looking at as the entire ecosystem of the health of a truck driver. So we are definitely looking at those, and we are working with Trucker Wellness and gathering the information. I've seen a question from Gavin Kelly as well. We have spoken to the NBCRFLI, which is the bargaining council. We have spoken to Trucker Wellness. They have given us the information of the truck stops that they actually currently have. They have told us about the mobile clinics that they have and where the delineations are. So we have consulted those. And like I said, as I was giving the information that's on my phone, that's information that we should provide maybe in graphic form in terms of the actual tabulation of where those clinics are located. But we have consulted them. When we came here, we've had two meetings. This is the third meeting we have, also just to Gavin. We have had two meetings on this platform with Harry. We've also have the Department of Transport also does have a transport forum. The consultation and the request for information has been done there. The previous meeting that we had here, we did provide information, and the presentation we given to this forum, and all the members were given because we had submitted it to Harry, and we had requested that if anybody has got comments that they want to give outside of the meeting, they can write to the department. We want to extend that again. The system or the strategy the framework rather is not complete yet. That's why we're coming here to gather this information. So if you've got any inputs, if there's any component of the strategy that you feel needs to be rectified or further aligned, we will give an opportunity, not just for questions and answers at this session, but for 2 weeks from here on in, we will allow everybody who is in this platform to give those written comments to us. Then the issue of traceability, that's a critical issue that was more of an observation, and we do take that the traceability should not just be on where your truck is when it's on the road. It should also be aligned to the systems that are at the truck stops. So we are looking into seeing how we can do that. But of course, there's issues there, because remember, the traceability and the systems that truck stops have are outside the realm of government. Those are conversations that the operators will need to have with the managers and owners of the truck stops, together with SaferStops, who's acting as a conduit between every single person, all the stakeholders that utilize the truck stops. So we do acknowledge the importance of that, and we're hoping to get to the bottom of it as soon as possible. The complex adoptive system that we have is exactly to do what that comment said, is to make sure that we integrate the feelings and the ideas and the thought and the strategic interventions of every single person in the ecosystem, from the truck driver to the people that provide the wellness in the clinics, to the operators, to the truck stop managers, the safety issues, the municipalities, and so on. So the entire ecosystem is well represented, because we don't only just focus on one thing. We make sure that every single person who's a strategic stakeholder plays a critical role there. The integration of the communities is also, it's a bit dicey, because let's be mindful of the institutional arrangement of government. So the Department of Transport creates the policies for government, and then you have other levers of government who've got responsibility for certain things. For example, population management is done by a different department. So what do we do when we're developing a strategy is that we give a report to them to say, we have realized that in the development of a truck stop framework, that there are communities that are beginning to emerge based on where trucks are stopping because of the amenities that have been provided to those. By the way, some of the amenities that have been provided by these communities are exactly what stagnates or create bigger problems for the movement of truck, for safety, for an example, both of the truck driver, but of the goods in transit. Secondly, the kind of foods that's been provided there. We also need to be cognizant of the fact that there is a certain understanding or food preference, right, of certain indigenous communities in South Africa, because most truck drivers are Black in majority. I mean, in our conversations also with the unions, we need to be cognizant of the fact that they like a certain type of food. But then the conversation is it healthy in transit? Is it not leading to a more of a degradation of their health? Is it not creating a worst case of sleep apnea? So those are conversations that we need to have on issues that may be seen to be softer issues, but in us talking about the provision of food, we must also be very cognizant of the fact that it must be a preference issue. We've been told blank out by the truck drivers, they will not eat what they call grass. They've told us in no uncertain terms. They've told us that there must be starch in the food and lots of meat. So we have to consider those things, but also be practical in terms of what exactly they need as truck drivers. I don't know, Ayanda, if you've got any other answers, and then we can take the last batch of questions.
I just wanted to come in on the lady from the Free State who said she might have more sites of truck stops. We are more than welcome to send them to us. Then we communicate with the truck stop owners and put them in our database. And also in terms of the legislation, if there's more that we have we have missed, please alert us so they can be included, because we want to have a well-rounded, comprehensive framework that takes into cognizance all the different legislations that might affect the operations of the truck stops. And also I wanted to comment on the traceability. In my presentation, I said that we wanted to have smart tools integrated into truck stops to just measure the movement, also to know what's happening, because that's important. It's data for us. So I just wanted to comment on that. Yeah, I think, we've covered all the questions asked so far.
Thank you. Any more questions to the panel? Slaughter, you muted.
I was saying to Sibongile, we'll definitely give you the presentation so you can see the 179 truck stops that we went to. And as Ayanda said, we are please, if you know any more, let us know. We'll physically visit them. We'll add them into our database. Thank you so much for that information. I see more hands. I see Khumutso. Khumutso, you may come in. Okay.
Tertius Vessels also had his hand up. Tertius, I don't know if your question has been answered in the meantime.
Okay, while I think we're doing that, there's some questions on the chat. Just a quick one. I've engaged with Trucker Wellness and they indicated that they have budgetary constraints, and that's from Jana Foster. We will definitely be having bilaterals with the Bargaining Council and Trucker Wellness and see how we can look at who else is interested. I mean, we have, for example, an organization called Good, which also does testing of eyes, looking at diabetes and all those other diseases, HIV and so on. So we can look at how we can have an integrated approach and look at where we can have budgets with all the different players that are currently providing these either mobile clinics and wellness, which has got the bigger clinics. There's another one from Pierre Heineke, great initiative, well constructed. Sorry, guys, please provide some clarity if all of the initiatives will be supported by a guideline management practice, what a truck stop should have in its operations. I have an interest in safety and security, lighting, fire, definitely. The purpose of this exercise is to do exactly that, give a guideline of what a truck stop must look like and should look like within the 4 tiers. So the tier 0, we're not going to entertain, because we're not advancing an argument that says we must have informal truck stops. We're just noting them that they're existing. But the 4 tiers will definitely have an analogy of the basic infrastructure, the basic services and what they should be providing, so that any single person who has an interest of developing a new truck stop or of enhancing the truck stop from tier 1 to tier 5, they know exactly what that is. I mean, the issues of safety and security are very, very critical. All truck stops should have safety and security. There should be a standard of CCTV, physical fencing, boundary walls, and all of those, clear lighting, clear entrance and going out. So those will definitely be as a guideline of what a truck stop should look like. So please, maybe when we send the strategy, look at that and see how we can advance that. From Pumi, it says, just wish to make a strong, it's probably recommendation on the remarkable progress that the truck, that the truck stop, it keeps going up and down. Sorry, guys, maybe let me use the arrow. Okay, strong recommendations on remarkable progress that the truck stop initiative has undergone. This initiative will doubtless go a long way in addressing the policy pronouncements such as modal reversal, shift from road to rail. Very true. So thank you for that. And there's another one from Gwen Foster, another comprehensive presentation, opportunities to talk, the traceability issue we did speak about, and thanks for clarifying that. The other one is from Ria Foslo, the eye health would be particularly important for safety on the road, user perspective as well as health. Okay, these are comments and observations. Thank you very much. Also an issue of environmental consideration should also be taken into account, like spills and leakages, definitely. And I think part of the presentation does speak to the issue of environmental friendliness and in the entire ecosystem of a truck stop. But I think if you have any other comment on what you've written, we are willing to look at that when you do get the presentation and are able to give us more written comments. Yes. And then do we have any more hands up, Harry?
Not that I can see. I see Tertius Wessel started talking to us there. Khomotso's got a problem with the microphone, so I asked for the question to be text. So I don't know, Khomotso. Unfortunately, Khomotso, I don't have control over your microphone, so I can't switch off. There's Tertius. Tertius, you're welcome to unmute.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, Tertius Wessels from Trucking Wellness. I just want to jump in here. As Matlali indicated, we've currently got 21 wellness centers across the country. However, we would love to have more wellness centers, but in the public-private partnership. But at this stage, it feels very much that the National Bargaining Council is carrying all the costs. And is government or Department of Transport maybe willing to come on board on this public-private partnership? It's quite expensive to run these wellness centers.
Definitely, Tertius. Thank you for coming in. Remember, at some point, we were having conversations about discussing this with the Department of Health, who have a direct responsibility to assist. I think we must reinvigorate those conversations so that we can speak to provincial departments of health and see what exactly they can do. Again, the institutional arrangement of government is such that we as a department don't get involved in health issues, but we can be the coordinating and the provision of health facilities. I cannot reiterate more, the work that you guys do by physically we've gone to these truck stops, we've seen the clinics, we've seen, the provision of services, but more importantly, we've seen the need of the drivers, to really have more, to utilize it more. And I know that, there's also capacity issues because some truck drivers spend the night and you find that some clinics are working during the day, which is understandable. There's no way you can afford to open a clinic for 24 hours. And I do know that you do have some emergency clinics that do first open like that, depending on the season at the end. So I do want to say, let's have an outside conversation, both with the National Bargaining Council and with you guys and the Department of Health. Please note that, Ayanda, to see how they can assist with the provision of medication and, if possible, even nurses at these clinics. But let's also then look at the infrastructure which can be provided, whether it is a mobile clinic or a facility like a prefab. I don't know what prefabs are called. Now, there's so many informal structures that we can actually put physically at truck stops, if we can actually put our heads together. So that's definitely something we are willing to help coordinate and to see how far we can take.
Thank you, Ms. Lawley. Yeah, and basically, we're not asking for money. At this stage, we're basically asking to link us with the right people at the engines and your big donors. That will assist us a lot. We will do the presentations and see how we can access funding for that, and then establish more wellness centers. Linkage is a lot more important sometimes as just purely giving money and resources.
Totally agreed and heard. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Lally. I think there are no more questions. Also, nothing on YouTube here. So maybe you can, each one of your panelists maybe can give us some closing remarks, and maybe we can start with Yanda for closing remarks, and then Ms. Lally can close the session for us.
Thanks, Eric. Just as a closing remark, I just want to thank everyone for participating in this session. And also I implore everyone to, if there's information about truck stops, where they're located, if there's any truck stop operator here who we've not met or is never engaged with myself or either with Nikki from SaferStops Association, let us know, because we are trying to build a comprehensive database of all the truck stops in the country to know where they are, where they're operating, the capacity and the amenities that you're offering. Because we've noted that truck stops are very important in the logistics chain. They're not just infrastructure that's there for rest and other things, but they play a key role in connecting everyone and stimulating economic growth in the community. So I just want to implore everyone, let us know, give us the information, and we will gladly include it in the framework, because with this information, it will make it stronger and push it more for even our own executive committee to approve it and take it further and make it an actual framework that can be used by industry. So yeah, that would be my closing comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayanda. Please put your email address in the chat so that those who have more information and also those who have further comments to provide on the presentations can submit them directly to you. Thank you so much, colleagues. This has been very, very insightful and a productive meeting. This is, like I'm saying, the third deposit to this forum on the work that we've done. Like I'm saying, it's definitely business unusual. What we're not doing in the development of this strategy is that we're not consulting people on a one-on-one basis. I know that there has been a modus operandi that government has been doing, but we are collectively looking and critically analyzing all the inputs that we get from forums like this, the transfer forum that we currently have in the Department of Transport, and the different private sector entities that were part of the development of the strategy. So we have tried to cast the net as wide as possible and pull in all the expertise and all the information. It has given us different perspectives on things that might have been an oversight on our part to actually quite look at quite intensively. There are many, many issues. Some of them you are going to find in the actual draft that will be finalized by us that seem like soft issues. The issue of nutrition is a big issue. the issue of Wi-Fi is a big issue. That's connectivity, and it speaks about whether a truck driver can have conversations with the operator, whether the operator can have a conversation with the truck driver where they're going to. So there are those social, issues that and when we're dealing with the strategic nodal points become very critical. When there's a strike, for example, in the middle of the road, the truck driver needs to be able to communicate directly and with all the other truck drivers. There is no reason why we don't have a WhatsApp group for all truck drivers in the country. And those are the things that we are trying to get to a point where we can, try to manage the ecosystem in its entirety. We recently had a strike on the 27th of November. Had there been a WhatsApp group of all truck drivers, for example, we could have known everything that's happening on the road as it happens. So we're not only just looking at the infrastructure development of the truck stop, we're looking at the entire ecosystem of the functionality and operational ability of the entire ecosystem on the economic corridors, as well as the actual nodal points, which have become strategic, safe havens for all our truck drivers. Thank you so much to Harry. I know that this is the last transport forum of the year. We are very happy to have been the last faces of this forum. Thank you for continuously understanding the plight of government and the importance for us to come and speak to stakeholders on what we're doing, because a lot of the time it's lost in transition or translation and nobody knows. Thank you for everyone who's consistently been with us, for all the comments that you guys have given, for all the inputs that we look forward to. And I know it's December and we're all going on holiday, but please, colleagues, can we at least have all your comments before end of December? Let's just leave it open-ended like that, so that those who are able to give it by the 15th, please do so. Those who are able to give it by the 30th, please do so, so that by January, we are consolidating and we are preparing our presentation to EXCO, having taken into cognizance all your issues. We are further going to have a conversation with the Bargaining Council as well as Tracking Wellness to try to look at how we can effectively assist in terms of, getting who are the strategic players that can assist them to have more clinics, more mobile clinics, and to ensure that the work that we do is fine. This will be the last time we see each other this year, colleagues. Thank you again. Thank you again. Do have a very good break, and we shall see each other in January. Drive safely. The roads are not as good as we want to, but I know the minister says continuously that it is our responsibility on an individual and collective basis to drive safely so that we see each other again and continue the work that we're doing for the industry in its entirety. Thank you so much, colleagues. Happy, Merry Christmas? Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we shall see each other again next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lalde and Jayanda. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a hand to the good panelists making this possible and for the good work you guys are doing. From a transport forum, yes, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. The contents of the chat room will be shared with the panelists. I see a lot of comments are coming in there, so we will share that with the panelists to make sure that they close the loop with you guys. But thank you very much, DOT and SaferStops. We really appreciate you hosting this event, and have a good one. Thank you very much, guys.